All right, get ready to dive deep into the psychology of money by Morgan Housel.
Oh, yeah, this book is packed with insights.
It really is, and we're going to unpack some of the most fascinating stories and explore those connections between how we think and how we handle money.
You know, it's not just about the numbers.
Right, it's about the psychology.
The psychology, yeah.
We've got excerpts from several chapters, and trust me, this book is going to make you think differently about your finances.
20 chapters, each one like a short story.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Each one diving into a different part of how our minds work when it comes to money.
Okay, so let's start with part one, the importance of psychology in finance.
Yeah, this is where Housel lays the foundation.
It really sets the stage for the whole book.
It shows how our past experiences, everything we've been through, shapes our relationship with money,
Our own money history.
exactly like a financial fingerprint.
So chapter one is called No One's Crazy. What do you think Housel's getting at there?
Well, he's saying that there's no right or wrong way to think about money because we all come from different backgrounds, different families.
Different experiences.
Right, and those experiences shape our beliefs and our financial decisions.
So even if someone's financial habits seem crazy to us,
Right,
it might make perfect sense to them.
exactly. Housel even says, what seems crazy to you might make sense to me.
It's a good reminder to be open-minded
Yeah.
and to understand that there's no judgment here.
Now let's talk about Chapter 2, Luck and Risk. This one really blew my mind.
Oh yeah, this one's a game changer.
It challenges that whole idea that financial success is all about hard work and talent.
Yeah, the self-made millionaire myth.
Right. Housel argues that luck plays a much bigger role than we like to admit.
And that risk is always a factor.
He uses the example of Bill Gates.
Oh, fascinating example.
Gates was brilliant, worked incredibly hard, but he also had a massive stroke of luck.
I mean, what are the chances?
Attending one of the only schools at the time with access to a computer.
Right, back when computers were these massive room-sized machines.
Imagine if he hadn't gone to that school.
I mean, would Microsoft even exist?
Who knows? And to really drive home the point about luck,
Yeah.
Housel talks about this friend of Gates,
Equally talented.
died young in an accident.
It just shows you that sometimes, no matter how hard you work or how talented you are,
Luck can play a role.
it's a bit humbling, isn't it?
It is, but it's also kind of freeing.
How so?
It takes some of the pressure off.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It helps us be a little kinder to ourselves and to others when it comes to financial success.
Now, chapter 3, Never Enough. This one gets a little darker.
This is where Housel dives into the psychology of greed.
The constant desire for more.
Right. Even when we have plenty.
It's like we're on this hedonic treadmill.
Always running, but never getting anywhere.
Exactly. Our expectations rise along with our income.
We keep thinking that if we just had a little bit more, then we'd finally be happy.
But it's never enough.
It's a recipe for misery.
And Housel illustrates this with the story of Rajat Gupta,
Oh, the former McKinsey executive.
who got caught up in insider trading.
This guy was at the top of his game,
Had wealth, power, respect.
and he threw it all away for even more money.
It's a cautionary tale.
It really is. And after serving time in prison,
Yeah,
Gupta reflected on his downfall with this incredibly powerful quote.
I remember this one.
Don't get too attached to anything. Your reputation, your accomplishments, or any of it.
It's a stark reminder of the dangers of chasing more.
Absolutely, without ever finding contentment.
So how do we get off this hedonic treadmill?
That's the million-dollar question.
Maybe Housel has some answers in the next chapters.
Well, we are going to have to see about that.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about chapter 4, Confounding Compounding.
This is where we get into the magic of long-term growth.
The power of patience and consistency.
Housel makes the point that time is the secret ingredient to building wealth.
And he uses Warren Buffett as a prime example.
You know, Buffett made 99.9% of his wealth after the age of 50.
Can you believe that? It blows that whole get-rich-quick myth out of the water.
Completely. It shows that slow and steady wins the race.
It's like that analogy he uses about hard drive storage capacity.
Oh, yeah, it seemed to explode overnight.
Right, but it was actually decades of gradual improvement,
Small gains compounding over time.
leading to a massive breakthrough.
And that's how compounding works with money, too.
Those small, early investments can snowball into something huge.
If you give them enough time?
So patience is key.
Absolutely.
Now, chapter 5, Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy. This one throws a curveball into the mix.
Oh, I love this chapter. It's so insightful.
It's about the difference between making money and keeping it.
Right. Getting wealthy might involve taking big risks, But staying wealthy requires a whole different mindset.
A shift in perspective.
Housel talks about Jesse Livermore, a legendary trader who made and lost fortunes multiple times.
Oh, wow. So he was brilliant but couldn't hold on to his wealth.
Exactly. Livermore was a master at speculating,
But he struggled with managing risk and controlling his emotions.
which ultimately led to his downfall.
It's a powerful reminder that it's not just about making money, it's about keeping it.
And that requires discipline, humility, and a long-term perspective.
Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground in part 1 of the psychology of money.
We've seen how our past experiences, our beliefs about luck and risk, our desire for more, and even our patience can all influence our financial journey.
And we've learned that staying wealthy requires a different mindset than getting wealthy.
It's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding the psychology of money.
So are you ready to explore some practical strategies and mindsets for navigating this complex world of money?
Let's dive into part 2.
So we've seen how our emotions and experiences really impact how we handle money.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is, and it makes you think differently about those traditional financial advice books.
You know, the ones that just focus on numbers and formulas?
Exactly. Well, in part 2 of the psychology of money, Housel gives us some practical strategies and mindsets
More actionable stuff.
that we can use to navigate those choppy waters of personal finance.
Oh, yeah, it's about making smarter decisions.
So let's jump right in with Chapter 6, Tails You Win.
This one's all about how a few key decisions can have a huge impact.
The outliers.
Yeah, like in a portfolio of investments.
The small handful of stocks might outperform all the others.
And drive the majority of your returns.
The same goes for businesses, right?
Absolutely. A few key products or decisions can make or break a company,
He uses that analogy of a distribution curve.
where most things cluster in the middle.
But those outliers, the tails, are what really matter.
It's a powerful concept.
And it reminds me of that statistic he shares about public companies.
Oh, yeah, most of them don't survive very long,
Even those in the Russell 3000.
which is like a who's who of the stock market.
So it's not about being right all the time.
Yep.
It's about recognizing those tails and making sure you're in the game when they happen.
Exactly. Focus on building a diverse portfolio.
Knowing that some things will fail.
But a few will succeed spectacularly.
So don't sweat those small losses.
Keep your eye on the big picture.
Now, Chapter 7, Freedom, gets to the heart of why we're so obsessed with money.
What's it all for?
Right. And Housel argues that the greatest value of money is the freedom it gives you.
Freedom to choose how you spend your time.
To pursue your passions.
To live life on your terms.
I remember when I was working as an investment banking intern.
Long hours, right?
Oh, crazy hours. The money was good,
Uh,
but I had zero control over my schedule.
no freedom.
And that's when I realized that freedom is priceless.
It really is. Money should buy you options, not chains.
So how do we gain more financial freedom?
Well, Chapter 8, Save Money, has some answers.
This one might seem a bit basic.
But Housel has a unique take on saving.
It's not just about being frugal.
It's about closing that gap between your ego and your income.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
It's about choosing humility over material possessions.
Being content with what you have.
And he uses that fascinating analogy of the U.S. overcoming the oil crisis.
In the 1970s,
It wasn't about finding more oil.
it was about needing less.
Through conservation and efficiency.
It's amazing how much we can adapt when we have to.
Right. We often have more control over our spending than we realize.
So his advice is simple, but powerful. Raise your humility.
As a way to increase savings.
Focus on what truly matters and let go of that need to impress others.
Now, Chapter 9, Reasonable Rational, challenges the traditional financial advice.
So always be perfectly logical,
Housel reminds us that we're human.
not robots.
Emotions play a role in our decisions.
Yeah, that's okay.
He tells this great story about Julius Wagner Jauregg,
Who was he?
a doctor who treated syphilis by inducing fevers.
Really? That sounds risky.
It was, but it worked.
Wow.
Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most logical on paper.
So it's about finding that balance.
Between logic and our human nature.
Time financial strategies that you can actually stick with.
Even if they're not mathematically perfect.
Now, Chapter 10, Surprise.
Hmm.
This one throws a wrench into our carefully laid plans,
Oh, yeah, life is full of surprises.
both good and bad.
And Housel argues that the world is inherently unpredictable.
No matter how much we plan or analyze.
There will always be things we can't foresee.
He quotes Daniel Kahneman. The correct lesson to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It is, but it's also a call to action.
to be more adaptable.
to build resilience into our financial lives.
So instead of trying to predict the unpredictable.
We should focus on being prepared for anything.
Okay, so we've explored the power of a few key decisions.
The importance of freedom and saving.
The need for reasonable over rational choices.
And the reality? The surprises are inevitable.
But how do we navigate the market itself?
And all those powerful narratives that shape our financial decisions. We've talked about our own psychology, those practical tips.
Yeah, now we're getting into the market itself.
Right. Part 3 of the psychology of money tackles those bigger forces at play.
The stories we tell ourselves about money.
And how those stories, those narratives, can really influence our decisions.
Even when we don't realize it.
It's like history repeating itself.
Or at least rhyming.
We see these patterns in the market.
Booms and busts.
And sometimes we get caught up thinking, this time it's different.
That's dangerous thinking.
Which brings us to Chapter 11, Room for Error.
This is where Housel uses card counting in blackjack as an example.
Card counting, what's the connection?
Well, even the best card counters, they know they won't win every hand.
Right, there's always an element of chance.
So they focus on managing risk.
Making sure they have enough to stay in the game.
Even when they hit a losing streak.
So it's about having a buffer.
A cushion for those unexpected events.
Like a margin of safety.
Exactly. Benjamin Graham's famous concept.
So in investing, that means having a plan for when things go wrong.
Because they will at some point.
Whether it's a market crash or an unexpected expense.
Having that room for error can help you weather the storm.
Now, Chapter 12, You'll Believe Anything. This one really gets into the psychology of belief.
How we're drawn to stories that confirm what we already think.
Especially when it comes to money.
The stakes are high.
He tells the story of a centenarian who believed World War I would be the last war.
Holding on to that belief even as the world changed around him.
It's amazing how we can cling to those comforting narratives.
Even when the evidence suggests otherwise.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap?
Well, we need to be more aware of those narratives.
The stories we're telling ourselves about the market.
Are they based on facts or just wishful thinking?
It's about being a critical thinker.
Not just following the crowd.
And then in Chapter 13, Nothing's Free, Housel reminds us that every investment has a cost.
And it's not always measured in dollars.
It's the volatility, the uncertainty.
The potential for loss that comes with any investment.
He makes this great analogy with Disneyland tickets.
You pay a fee for the experience.
The market returns are kind of the same.
You have to accept that volatility is part of the game.
It's the price of admission.
For the potential of those higher returns.
So instead of fearing volatility,
we should see it as the cost of participating in the market.
Okay, I'm starting to reframe my thinking on that.
Good.
Now, Chapter 14, Man in the Car Paradox. This one's all about perception versus reality.
How we often judge wealth by what we see.
The fancy cars, the big houses.
But we don't see the whole picture.
The debt, the financial struggles behind those outward displays.
He says it best, wealth is the nice cars not purchased.
It's a reminder that true wealth is often invisible.
It's about financial security, freedom of choice.
Living a life that aligns with your values.
Not trying to keep up with the Joneses.
And that leads right into Chapter 15. Wealth is what you don't see.
Emphasizing the power of saving and delaying gratification.
Making choices today that give you more options tomorrow.
It's about asking yourself, what am I willing to give up today to have more tomorrow?
A powerful question.
And then Chapter 16, All Together Now, brings it all together.
How those individual decisions play out in the market.
Housel points out that different investors value assets differently.
Someone looking for a quick profit might take on more risk.
While a long-term investor might focus on stability.
It's a complex ecosystem with all these different players.
Each with their own goals and strategies.
And understanding those different perspectives can help you make smarter decisions.
Avoid getting caught up in the hype or panic.
And finally, Chapter 17, Confessions. This is where Housel gets personal.
Shares his own financial philosophy.
He talks about owning his home outright for peace of mind.
Even though it might not be the most financially optimal decision.
It's a reminder that personal finance is personal.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
It's about aligning your financial decisions with your values and goals.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the psychology of money.
From our own biases to the power of narratives.
The importance of saving and managing risk.
And ultimately, the freedom that comes with understanding how money really works.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
And if you're looking to gain more control over your finances,
make smarter decisions,
and live a more fulfilling life,
I highly recommend checking out this book for yourself.
It's packed with insights that can change the way you think about money.
and help you create a brighter financial future.